Hey, just doing some renos here in our kitchen, and I just thought just tell you a story. 10 years ago, our family was living in Kelowna and we wanted to reno our kitchen, and so the day before the cabinets came, we had to make sure all the electrical parts were set up so that the cabinets would go in and then the electrical parts would be able to pull out and set up perfectly. So the day before the cabinets came, our neighbor, who was our electrician, came and said, "Kevin, sorry, I'm sick, I can't do this." And I'm like, "What?" I was really under the wire. I felt under the wire. And so I decided, okay, before you leave, just show me some things. And so he showed me some things, and as he's leaving, I was holding two wires in my hands, and he goes, "You know, Kevin, you really don't look very comfortable with power. You're not very comfortable with power, are you?" And then he said, "Well, good luck." Slammed the door shut. I was shaking in my boots. Electricity, it's so polarizing, isn't it? It can either be extremely helpful and light up an entire city, or it can be extremely unhelpful and dangerous and harmful and electrocute you to death. There's no middle ground with electricity. In our verses today, Paul says the same thing about love. There's no middle ground with love. It can either be, if used correctly, one of the most powerful powers in the world, or if used incorrectly or carelessly, it can be one of the most devastating and destructive powers in the entire world. Now here's a question. Of all the rooms in a house, bedroom, living room, kitchen, which of those three rooms do you think more murders happen in? The bedroom, kitchen, or the living room? Well, the answer is the bedroom. The bedroom is where most people are murdered, and they're murdered by people whom they know. The room that we thought was the safest turns out to be the world's most deadliest room. A few years ago, David Petraeus, architect of American strategy in Iraq and Afghanistan, head of Central Command in CIA, he was married with 2 kids, and he was caught having an affair with his biographer, Paula Broadwell. And they got caught because Paula was sending these threatening messages not to David's wife, but actually this third woman who was also in love with David, named Jill Kelly. And the craziness of the story is that the CIA didn't care about David having these affairs. What they cared about was that David didn't tell him that he was having these affairs, and that was a breach of security. And they only found out because of these threatening emails to this third party. But you have to ask yourself, what would possess a middle-aged man in the pinnacle of success, risking decades of achievement and trust to destroy his entire life on a passing fancy? The answer? The room we thought we were most safe in easily turns into the world's deadliest room. Love is so powerful when it's used purely, but it's so deadly when it turns into lust. And that's why Apostle Paul says in verse 3, "Don't allow love to turn into lust, setting off a downhill slide into sexual promiscuity, filthy practices, or bullying greed." David Petraeus got his wires crossed, and because of that, he electrocuted his whole life. Now, in biblical Greek, there are 4 Greek words, and today we're going to look at 2 of them. Agape, it means self-sacrificing love, the kind of love that God is a part of. It's a love that gives. And there's another word for love, and it's actually not in the Greek New Testament, but it's still a word for love that they used in those days, and it's Eros. And Eros is a selfish kind of love. It's a love that gives so that it can get. And usually Eros refers to sexual love or a sexual type of love, but Eros is actually not necessarily sexual. It simply means a kind of love that gives so that it can get. And sometimes people say, oh yeah, I really love that person, but they don't really love them in an agape way. They just love how that person makes them feel or meets their needs in an unhealthy way. I was worship pastor in a church for 14 years, and I would be standing sometimes after the service with Deborah, and people, not everyone, but once in a while, people would actually run over Deborah to come and talk to me and to tell me how they appreciated me. And so I just thought it was so strange. You know, if you are trying to tell someone that you appreciate them, yet you run over the person that they love so much. That's what Eros love is, right? They didn't understand agape love. If you want to give, what agape love is giving a gift to someone that you wouldn't like, but you know they would love. You know, we were in Australia visiting Caden a few years ago, and we bought her a cute stuffy, this stuffed animal from Canada. I think it was a moose. And we brought it to her. We were at a restaurant, and she opens it up, and it's this stuffed moose. And then she began to cry. And we were like, what is going on? And then we realized we weren't loving Caden. We gave her something. This animal, the stuffed animal, is made in China. The workers were paid poorly. The company polluted the environment, and the materials were bad for the earth. And so the reason why Caden was crying was because her parents were showing by the gift that we gave her, that we didn't actually love her. The gift was the complete opposite of all of her values. It was Eros love, not agape love. We hadn't even given it a second thought. What Caden values is fair trade, clean environment, recycling. We were such bad parents. But how often do we do this in every day, even in our relationships? We say we love someone, but maybe that love for them is only a love for them for what they do for us and how they meet our needs, which means that's not agape love, that's Eros love. We have to be clear that our agape love is actually self-sacrificial. Now, Eros love is not bad on its own. Eros has a place in our lives. Like a baby loves its mother. Why? Not because of self-sacrifice, but because the mother is keeping that baby alive. So that is Eros, but that's a positive example of Eros, right? You want that. That's a godly Eros. And let's talk a little bit about Eros love. Love that gives so that it can get. And often what I'm saying is we use Eros love in a non-sexual way all the time. But now let's go to the sexual way of Eros love. And Paul addresses this specifically in our verses. Sexual promiscuity, which is sex outside of marriage, and even thinking about sex outside of marriage, is deadly, he says. It electrocutes us. It crosses our wires and kills our families. It depersonalizes us and other people. And marriage is this holy protection. It's given to us from God. And in marriage, sexual relations are holy. In a godly marriage, the godly marriage insulates us and creates a safe barrier around us in the bedroom. That high voltage of sexuality is safely contained within the protective ring of marriage. And so the bedrooms of this world are polarized. More people are murdered, depersonalized, hurt, dehumanized. More people give their souls away, wanting more and more and more, only to electrocute themselves. But the bedroom can be also the best room in the house. Intimacy, trust. If grounded in a marriage that is based on agape love that always considers our spouse's heart first. So Eugene Peterson says, love is not a feeling, an ideal, nor a technique where we get our needs met. Love is acting in correspondence with or in response to God in relations to people. Now, moving back from the bedroom to the kitchen. We're going to do a little bit of renos here too. That was some bedroom renos that we were doing, and now we're back in the kitchen doing some renos in the kitchen. Now, the kitchen is a symbol of intimacy and love too, but a different kind of intimacy and love. Kitchen intimacy is the kind of intimacy that actually most women prefer. Incidentally, more men are killed in the kitchen and more women are killed in the bedroom, sadly. The basics of life, they're played out in the kitchen, right? We spend a lot of time with friends and family in the kitchen, and our true selves really come out in the kitchen, preparing dinner, washing the dishes, or not washing the dishes, or cutting the vegetables. Kitchen love is the kind of love that we use a lot, especially in church too. That kind of love that we have for our friends and family in church. When we have people over, we're always gravitating to the kitchen. And in the kitchen, we are most human. And almost every spiritual guide in the world says, if you want to grow spiritually, don't run off to the Himalayas or do the Camino. Start in the kitchen, at home, among the people who you know best. Families, friends, close people around us, the ones we invite into the kitchen, they know what kind of love we have and who we are and why we do it. In the kitchen, like the bedroom, love can be directed in one of two ways, right? Agape love, which is self-sacrificing love, or Eros love, a love that gives so it can get. When I was unhooking the cables from our dishwasher, there was a warning sign that said, we don't actually have a dishwasher here. This is Kelowna. Now we live in Surrey. But there's a warning sign that said, this is really dangerous, Kevin. Don't do this. If you get your wires crossed, you're going to die. And so what I did was I phoned my dad and said, Dad, don't want to get my wires crossed. How do I do this? And so he talked me through it. And community, the church, our Heavenly Father, Scripture, these are the ways that we can insulate ourselves from being electrocuted, even in the kitchen, because it happens all the time too. We think we're giving agape love, but we're actually giving Eros love. And we're expecting something back, and then things implode, and there's an explosion, and it's lights out in our life. We all have blind spots. Let's not pretend. So finally, agape love, we have to clarify this one thing. Agape love is not allowing yourself to be a doormat, right? Here's our doormat. Agape love is not allowing yourself to be a doormat. In fact, if you're in an abusive relationship, agape love is called self-sacrificing love. So what does that mean? If you allow someone to just run over you all the time, take away your self-esteem, take away your pride, take away your things, you're not loving them self-sacrificingly. You're just avoiding the conflict. And self-sacrifice means, agape means actually standing up and for yourself, because that's the hardest thing, right? When I went through counseling, it was the same thing. Learning to confront people was completely agape love, because I had to give up so much what other people thought, what I thought was true, changing dynamics, allowing other people to, not think that I'm this happy, perfect person. I had to give up so much, and that's agape love, in order to confront different things and different people in my life that I needed to do. So in closing, in Kelowna, our kitchen cabinets finally got installed that day, and then the next day after our electrician, he was better, he came over and he looked at all the prep work that I'd done, and he said, yeah, it's not too shabby, he said. So I was really happy about that. But what I loved about it was I knew Deborah would be really excited. So when they turned on the lights and the cabinets and everything, she was just really overjoyed, and seeing her so happy made me really happy. And only Jesus can help us discern the difference between agape and eros. And only Jesus can help us discern the healthy versions of each in our lives. And also being in a church and being in a church community, we need each other. We need each other. And sometimes we're going to have failures, and sometimes we're going to have like shortages or lights out in our lives, and that's okay, because God can lift us up and God can rewire our lives. And just because you sometimes get short-circuited doesn't mean that God can not rewire and rework in your life. God is working in your life even through the mistakes that you make. Our verses, they conclude, "For you were formerly darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. So walk as children of light."